Hey there, I'm coming to you from my new editing place. I used to edit up in the bedroom that I converted to an office, but about a week ago, I moved my stuff down here. This is down in my basement, just outside my listening room. Behind me is the laundry room, and it seemed like a waste of space having this area here empty, and I was going to build like a base cabinet across here for storage and a surface on there for what I don't know, and then bookshelves above. I'm going to put the bookshelves above still, but the base cabinet has been replaced by my fancy desk here, and I moved down my printer cabinet slash file cabinet. That's beside it. It all fits right in here. Like, my house is not big, so I have to try to utilize the space as best as I can. Right? So this is, in my opinion, was a smart move. Now, my old office, I'm going to gut it. I'm going to take out the stuff that I did in there before, the ceiling, you know, the wood slat ceiling, plus the lighting. And I put paneling on the front wall to blank out the front windows so I wouldn't have any natural light in the room while I'm editing. Although this room has natural light, it's off in the distance. I don't see it while I'm editing here on the thing. And I've only edited a couple of videos in here anyway. So yeah, I'll be converting the room up there to a hobby room where originally I was thinking that maybe I could even put the CNC in there, take it out of my shop and put that in there, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm leaning towards for the CNC, because what I want to do with the CNC is I want to fully enclose it and make it so that it has passive dust collection as it does now. It'll still be wall mounted, vertically mounted, so any dust, like the large majority of the dust, falls down into a drawer in the bottom. But the fine dust collection would be similar to my table saw, where I have a shop vac hooked up that turns on automatically when I start the saw. So that collects the fine dust that circulates inside the saw. Okay, so the same thing would be happening here. Like a shop vac or something, some kind of dust collector would be connected, and it would all be self-contained inside an enclosure. The front of the enclosure would probably be see-through plastic or something, and you open it up and you get at it and you close it when it's operating, that type of thing. And I was thinking about putting that in this laundry room, which is fairly big, actually. It's bigger than it needs to be. A few years ago, I built shelves on the wall in there to put all kinds of junk. And you know what? That junk has been sitting there for years. I haven't used it for anything. So I'm going to get rid of that junk. I'm going to get rid of those shelves. And I'm going to put the CNC machine in there on the wall. I'm leaning towards that anyway. Nothing's written in stone yet. Okay. But that seems like another good thing to do, right? Because I don't use the CNC every day. And realistically, it's not that important to my woodworking. So putting it in here would get it out of my shop, free up space in there, which I'm going to come to in a second, and make it a bit more convenient for me to use because it'll be inside the house. Now, if you've been paying attention to what I've been up to, you'll know that I have bought a 3D printer. I had many, like, I don't know, dozens and dozens offered over the years, but I never took these offers. Instead, I waited until I felt that I had a need for a 3D printer, because up until now I really didn't. And I bought one. And the one that I bought is the Bamboo Lab P1P. It's the one without the enclosure. It's the same as the P1S or something with the enclosure, but it's I did a little bit of research. I talked to people that are into 3D printing, And I looked online and I made comparisons. It was either the Prusa one or the Bamboo Labs. And the Bamboo Lab kept coming up more recommended. Okay, so I went with that. And I'm not regretting it because I've been using it, like I've used it a few times since then. And that 3D printer will go in the hobby room. So that'll be very convenient to use in there. Now the hobby room is mostly for electronics. Right now I have I have electronic stuff in the room behind me, the laundry room, and also in that room that I started making into that a few years ago. That is over here in the corner of the basement. And both of these spaces are smaller than I really need for that type of thing. I need a bigger room. Now that bedroom that was my office is not a big room either, but it's significantly bigger than both of these rooms. So move all the electronic stuff up to that room, one location, because I gotta confess, currently a lot of it's strewn over my island top in my kitchen, where I'm working on something right now. I'm working on two things actually right now. And it'd be nice to get that cleared out of the various places it is, put in one central location where I can organize it, right? So that brings me to this week's project, which is this organizer right here that you see. Yes, that has 12 drawers. That number is actually accidental because like I said in the video, I just grabbed as many pieces of MDF as I could find to cut the right size pieces out of, and I made the organizer from that. And as you can see, they are individual pieces of MDF that are drawers that have little pockets milled in them and on full extension drawer slides. That is very neat. Because one of the things, okay, when I originally decided to make this, it was going to be a lot simpler. It was just going to be drawers on runners that you could actually pull right out. Okay, and it was also like going to have less drawers because my purpose for building this was to put in the surface mount components that you can maybe see here. They're very tiny resistors. Okay, I bought those. I switched to those rather than through-hole resistors. But that's another story. Anyway, so I started off making this simpler. I also started off filming it in a kind of throwaway style. It wasn't going to be a full build video, but then as I got into it and I made it more complex, then I decided to, you know, make it into a full build video to put on my main channel. So anyway, yeah, the handles alternate like this, so you can easily grip them, you know, and the thing is heavy because it's made from MDF. The drawers are. It's not for the contents, which is kind of good because it stays stable. It's not going to shift when you pull the drawers open, right? And the way I did the full extension drawer slides was kind of interesting. That developed as I was doing it. You know, how they come out like that, they stop. And it's all very slim, right? And it works perfectly, as in no problems. And you can see up here is the 3D printed one that works exactly the same way, except you didn't have to glue, or you didn't have to cut a bunch of little strips of wood and glue them and sand them and all that. It just prints and it fits in there perfectly. So yeah, so that's this week's project. Also, a few days ago, well, this goes back months actually, I designed a new sanding block that uses the same kind of thing that my full sheet sandpaper holder uses, in that there's a frame that fits down over and holds the full sheet, and it doesn't have any edges of the sheet exposed, as in you can't snag it. So I designed a sanding block, a quarter sheet. You know, you cut a sheet of sandpaper into 4 pieces, that's the sanding block size, right? So it uses a quarter sheet of sandpaper, but it holds the sandpaper in the same way, right? So Here, I'll get in closer. You can have a better look. Or better yet, I'll just put pictures in the video so you can see it. And the way this works, it's kind of interesting. And you can see that it's 3D printed. And if you're on Patreon, like on my Patreon or locals, you already know that this is 3D printed because I showed it there. And I actually put the STL files there for anyone to get to that's on there. And you can print your own, right? Now, the way this works is this part here swings up, okay? This is the lock lever, as I call it. And then the bottom slides out, okay? Okay, look at that. See, that sticks down there about 1/8 of an inch when it's pushed all the way down. That fits into that slot right there. Now, you don't have to 3D print this part, but I just did it because I can. And here's the frame that the sandpaper goes in, right? That holds it on there. Now, both of these things are tapered. Like the sides of this are tapered so that it holds it in there securely, right? But the point is that there are no edges here to, you know, if you've ever been sanding with a sanding block, okay, if it's curled around the front, like one of those rubber ones, then it can catch on the side. And it catches on the side and it tears. Or it catches on the piece of wood and it pulls up a big sliver, which is no good either. So there are no edges here to catch on anything unless it tears, which is not likely to do. So yeah, I thought this was neat. Originally, I designed this to build from wood, and I will be doing that. That's a project that'll be coming up soon. But I thought that it was a perfect 3D printing project. So that's what you see right here. Now it's a bit big, like you can see the sanding surface here, but it sticks down below this frame. So the center pad here is thicker than the frame parts, and it sticks down. So you got lots of, like, it's not going to get you in a corner, but you're going to be able to do a lot of like surface sanding, which is the majority of your sanding anyway, or edge sanding, you know, anywhere where this is going to work, you can flip it over and sand small parts on it, okay, the same way. Now the wooden version was going to be this size, and also I was going to do a 1/3 sheet size, as in you cut the sheet of paper, sandpaper, into 3 pieces across the width of it. So that's 11 divided by 3, whatever that is, 3.333 repeating, whatever it is, wide. So the sanding surface would be less than that. It'd be about 2.5 inches wide by 8.5, no, minus an inch, 7.5. So it'd be, you know, about 8 inches long and about 3 inches wide. That sander, the 1/3 sheet, which would be interesting to have. Well, it'd be handy to have for, you know, if you've got a bigger surface to sand, like that's kind of narrow, right? And then the same thing could be done with like half sheet, right? So yeah, definitely potential there. And I'm loving that 3D printer, and I certainly don't regret getting it. And I think I waited like the right amount of time for the technology to mature enough to get a printer that it's not a toy, right? That's going to be dependable, work quickly. This thing is very fast. It printed all these parts in less than 2 hours, I think. Okay. Fast, dependable, you know, relatively inexpensive. You know, the thing was $1,000 with I bought an extra hot end and another spool of PLA filament. But I think it's money well spent, and I don't regret not taking the ones that were offered, because I was never offered that particular brand. Right? I was offered the Creality ones and some other brands. Ackermake, I think, is another one. Some earlier ones that I like. I by and large, I don't even answer these emails. Okay, I just ignore the emails that I get from these companies peddling this stuff. mainly because my audience is not really interested in this, okay? But I think it's a good supplement. Having one of these things is a good supplement to a woodworker in that it opens possibilities. It's very much like when you're doing electronics to have some test equipment, okay? Like, do you absolutely need an oscilloscope? No, you don't absolutely need one, but it's very handy to have occasionally. And it's like everything else that, you know, they use as a tool. A 3D printer, I mean, I'm working on a clamp idea, and it would be very tricky to prototype the parts because it's a working mechanism, right? It'd be very tricky to prototype the parts with wood, especially in a small scale. But the 3D printer, I can scale the parts down and print them quickly and check to see if it actually works, like mechanically works. So that's the huge benefit of it right there, and that's what I've been doing. So yeah, it's a prototyping tool. It's also a finished tool that you can make useful objects with. Also, before I go, give me your opinion on me making the videos down here as opposed to in the shop. I'm thinking about making future videos from here instead of, you know, out in the shop. Mainly in the winter. I don't know about summer. Summer would be okay. But in the winter, it's definitely more comfortable. You know, my shop is heated, but only up to 5 degrees Celsius. So it's kind of cold out there. I have to put on a sweatshirt, get dressed up. I have to trudge through the snow and whatever. Although we haven't had a lot of snow lately. But yeah, a lot more comfortable down here. And the acoustics aren't bad, but then that's never been a huge factor for these videos anyway. So just let me know in the comments what you think.
You know, high school, it's a lot like prison. Bad food, high fences, the sex you want, you ain't getting. The sex you're getting, you don't want.